Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is an absolute pleasure for me to be here today in this room. I've been privileged in my lifetime to be a lifelong philatelist, and the moniker of the 3 L's that we hear sometimes in terms of live, love, laugh, there's actually a 4th in there that's learning. And all 4 of those have been very impactful for me in association with my work in philately. And in particular, I've come to highly value the people that I've been able to connect with in philately. Incredible experiences throughout my life, and it continues here at Boston. So I'm delighted to have you guys all in the room today. I'm one of the 3 co-directors of the collaboration crew. My 2 close colleagues are here in the room somewhere as well. Suzanne is right here. Paul's right up here as well. Besides our panel, I reached out to 15 of my philatelic colleagues and asked them the same question about what is philately going to look like and does it need to look like in 2035? And the second question, what's it going to take for us to get there? And so they responded. I ended up with getting over 30 pages of feedback from those 15 individuals. So I have taken the liberty of taking some short snippets, in some cases just 2 or 3 sentences, from those individuals. I've indicated who they are. There's some good comments in there. I also encourage you to take a moment just to read the mission statement of the collaboration crew. If you use Facebook, please join our Facebook group. We already have a number of good resources that are available for philatelic clubs, societies, and we've gotten some really good feedback on those. These are all individuals who contribute significantly to philately in different ways, in different places, but have been very impactful upon our hobby. And so I think their perspectives on the 2 key questions that we're asking related to the future of philately are important for all of us to consider. And there will be opportunity for some discussion. Short and sweet at this point. I'm not going to say anything about the presenters really, other than to say Mark, current president of the APS on the board of the New York Collectors Club, is our first speaker. And Mark, it's over to you.
The first question that comes up, or the first comment I see on a regular basis, is why is philately dying? Why are things shrinking, or why is it changing? And the reality is, philately is not dying. It's just evolving. And when I say evolving, it doesn't mean that more people are coming to shows. More and more people are involved. However, they may not be involved in the way that we have traditionally measured the participation. If you've ever bid on eBay and been outbid by 30 or 40 other people, you realize there are other collectors out there. So the key question going forward is, how do we remain relevant? How do we increase our relevance? How do we meet, or even better, how do we exceed expectations going forward? Now, as part of this exercise, I'm going to dive back a little bit. The pandemic was a sentinel event. It was an inflection point. And the reason I say it was an inflection point is it forced us to try many things that we've been thinking about, but had not had the opportunity or the impetus or the stimulus to put into place. So in a way, it forced our hands. With the Collectors Club of New York, we started the virtual program series. And now we've had over 100 virtual programs with extreme success. In the beginning, we used to get 20, 30, or 40 people in a room for an in-person meeting, and they were wonderful meetings. We started our virtual series, and we were up to 200 or 300 minimum per meeting. And many of the attendees were people we've never heard of before. It was a trial and error type of thing. We did things, we made mistakes. We pivoted, some things worked, some worked better than others. But we tried it and we learned, and we took it to the next step. Today, virtual programming is considered a basic tenet of philately. 5 years ago, it was still, why are you guys doing that? We loved our in-person meetings, that's how we've always done it. And our current leadership put out a strategic plan recently. It's only about 70 pages. We'll have a little test on it after this meeting. How to today's organized groups go forward, bringing in the unaffiliated. The person I like to say sitting at their kitchen table, typing on their laptop, filling their collection, who we've never met, who has never gone to a show, that does not come to events, may not even belong to a club. The reality is the number of local clubs has declined precipitously over the past 20, 30 years. And also, with the international scene, how do we evolve going forward? What is our relationship going to be? How does it benefit all? Question, how do we maintain relevance? How do we bring in the unaffiliated? And how do we interact with other groups, both within and without Philately, both domestically and internationally? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I have some views from my side, and when we are talking about Philately in 2035, AI is gonna influence us a lot. Philately has survived for more than 180 years because it has continuously adapted to change. Today we are entering in another major transformation, the edge of artificial intelligence. I believe artificial intelligence will become one of the most important tools in the future Philately, but we must understand one very important point, that AI should be the assistant and the philatelist must remain the master. At this stage in 2026, AI cannot create a serious world-class exhibit simply by supplying scans of stamps and covers. AI cannot truly see an item the way an experienced philatelist sees it. For instance, AI cannot detect a forged cancel, a regum stamp, or fake manuscript trademarking, things an experienced exhibitor recognizes at a glance. Most AI systems uses the OCR technology and the IDP, Intelligent Document Processing. They might have some more developed tools in future, but at this stage they have this. And the pattern recognition to read images and the text of your exhibit. When you upload an exhibit, AI mainly interprets the storyline and descriptions that you provide. It does not truly understand the philatelic object itself, the way an experienced collector or expert does. The exhibitor must still create the vision, the exhibitor must decide the storyline, organize the chronology, select the important items, and the present original research. What AI can do is to help us become better exhibitor. In fact, there is already a practical way collectors can use AI while building an exhibit. I have some tips here for the beginners, those who want to try their hand. First, create a dedicated chat, name it, whatever your exhibit is. Second, upload the references. See, this part is very important. The more you educate your AI, it will respond you in a better way. So upload all the references, articles, whatever the certificates, expertise certificates you got, some of the important descriptions, and supporting literature. I mean, if you can scan the whole book, you can upload the PDF before you start asking for help. Third, then, begin writing your exhibit while using AI to improve descriptions, structure, grammar, chronology, and presentation. Fourth, set your target level, what you are looking for in national, international, FEPA, FIAP. It has all the information, so it will go through accordingly. AI can then help to adapt the presentation, writing style accordingly. Finally, to review and polish the exhibit for consistency and clarity. This is especially valuable for collectors whose first language is not English, like me. For I'm an Indian and my native language is Gujarati, national is Hindi, and English is my third language. So AI may actually help create a more global and inclusive philatelic community, but AI will also create a challenge. As AI improves, generic exhibiting and repetitive write-ups will become easier to recognize. Originality, interpretation, and storytelling will become even more important in competitive philately. I would also like to briefly mention about judging. See, the exhibitors invest years of research, dedication, significant financial resources into building the exhibits. Therefore, judging must continue evolving toward greater transparency and consistency. I believe exhibitors should have the opportunity after critic to seek clarification or review of judging comments. And finally, the virtual exhibition, I want to comment on this one. This will grow rapidly. I have seen number of virtual exhibitions are going here and there. And here too, AI can become a useful assistant for judges by helping with chronology checks, grammar checks, bibliography verification, cross-references, and consistency review. However, the final judgment must always remain in human hands, guided by the experienced senior jurors. Technology should support philatelic wisdom, never replace it. I would like to conclude with one final thought. The future of philately will not be decided by AI, it will be decided by how intelligently we philatelists use it to improve our exhibits. Thank you very much indeed.
I think the two questions have a lot of overlap, so I just wanted to make some comments, both on an individual collector level and on a societal level, the things that I think we can do to encourage or to enhance enjoyment of our hobby. So we're all stamp collectors. I think many, if not most of us, came to the hobby collecting stamps, putting them in our albums. But I think we can encourage people or show people that there's a lot of layers to philately to be enjoyed by studying the stories behind the stamps. Not just, maybe not necessarily what's depicted on the stamp, or the reason that it was issued, what it's commemorating, but when a stamp goes on a letter and a letter travels somewhere, what's the story behind that letter? Who sent that letter? Where is it going? What were the circumstances of that letter being sent? So there's a lot of stories that I think we can discover, and we want to encourage people to learn those stories for themselves, for their enjoyment of their own collection, but also to share the stories, because a lot of times the stories can take on a personal aspect as well when it's coming from individual collectors. And so the slide there is showing the logos of an initiative that we're kicking off at our national convention in Canada next month. We've called it Freestyle Philately. We've modeled it after Display Your Way, which Suzanne initiated at Stampex, at Virtual Stampex. But it's really just to encourage people to share stories. So what it is, it's a non-competitive forum where we're inviting people to just put something on a page, stamp a cover, whatever they want, no formatting rules, just write something about it, share a story, and we're going to put them up in frames at the show just for people to view them, and we'll set aside a time at the show where people can stand at the frames and interact with the public, and we'll have people around to answer questions if people have questions about how to make this kind of a display. So it's really, and we've had a fantastic response. So at the Royal, we have a very large competitive exhibition, but we've had a lot of people sending in registrations for Freestyle Philately, just to, people who have stuff in their collection that they want to share, and they've never considered competitive exhibiting, but they find this a very easy, hopefully an easy way to share something from their collection. I've noticed that at a lot of clubs have, for their monthly meetings, they'll have a presentation. But I find that the most popular ones, or some of the most popular ones where there's a lot more participation, are show and tells, where sometimes there's a theme, or maybe not a theme, unrestricted show and tell, and lots of people will show something from their collection and get really passionate when they're talking about it. So I think we need to encourage more of that and more sharing. One of the not infrequent questions I've had is, why should I join a stamp club? I have my collection, I work on it at home. What benefits can I get from joining a stamp club? And I think we need to open people's eyes that stamp collecting, it's a very social hobby, and there's a lot of fellowship and friendship. I mean, I've made lots of very amazing friends through philately, not just in my city or even in my country, but internationally. And it's wonderful to catch up with them at a show like this, people that I've only met virtually or through emails. So it's a social hobby, and I think it really enriches the hobby for us when we can share it with our friends. And then on a societal level, I think, to make philately more relevant, maybe that's not the right word, but I think, we are, as philatelists, we're keepers of historical artifacts. We hold these letters and covers that have, been sent decades or, even centuries before. And there are lots of people who have overlapping interests: historical societies, genealogy societies, military history societies, who have the same interests but don't necessarily have access to the same artifacts or know where to find them. And I think we can have a lot of shared interactions. So I think societies, philatelic societies,
30 seconds.
can reach out to these other non-philatelic societies, not necessarily with the aim of recruiting philatelists, but to share knowledge and to show what philately can offer. So just to give an example, I've given presentations to my medical colleagues about some of the things I've learned through philately, about medical history, the history of transfusion medicine. And I always pepper them with some of my philatelic material. And my colleagues, number one, they love the history because they don't learn that through medical school. And they are always fascinated and flabbergasted by the material that I show them. And they say, like, where did you find that? Where can you get that material? It's primary material, right? So I think there's a lot of potential and possibilities out there to interact with, our non-philatelic colleagues to share and tell all these stories that philately provides. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
I could not be more thankful to have followed Jean, because amen, and I agree entirely with especially her comments about cross-pollination and so many other aspects. I spent the better part of the last 25 years of my life focused on the question of how to engage the world and bring them into our world, how to make what we do bigger, more relevant, more engaging. And most of my big public efforts have been about my personal testing of different theses that I have on these questions. 3 years ago at the Royal, we did basically a military history exhibition focused on the Zulu War, but the idea was, my thesis was, by creating an opportunity to bring people from the military history world, who are also collectors in many ways, into a philatelic space at the Royal, and basically engage objects side by side. Could we do more with this cross-pollination? The reason that the Queen Elizabeth Carr exhibit is here, there's two reasons. Reason one is, I promised Julie and who's our PR person, and the entire show many years ago that I would do something to try to bring in the public, to get them in the door so that we can then make the best impression on them. The second reason, though, is to my very first point, which is to demonstrate my ideas around the life cycle of bringing someone into stamp collecting, or the funnel. Very briefly, the idea of a marketing funnel basically is you have sort of the top of the funnel is sort of the most people are up there, and that's where you're kind of trying to bring people into your funnel, and then you've got to do something that gets them to be qualified to get them into the next level, sort of where they're engaging more, they're coming to more events, they're doing something, they're signing up for something, whatever that may be. And then the bottom of the funnel is they're in, they're engaged, they've bought, they've whatever. A life cycle is the same concept. So the example that I've just to throw this out there is, how many of your stamp clubs have free stamps for someone to look at if they were to walk into your club by accident or on purpose? I'll bet that at least half don't, because I've visited dozens of clubs around the country and they don't. So as an example, that's a harm to the life cycle of someone that does find their way through a public listing or otherwise to your club. Many clubs I go to have no stamp, not a single stamp for that person to touch or to hold in their hand. So again, the life cycle has to begin somewhere, and everyone will start somewhere different. But the Queen Elizabeth exhibit, if you have not seen it, please go see it, because you'll see a window into my mind, which is you can excite the public and show them stamps. Notice that all the stamps that are on the panels are big. Herb Trenchard at the National Postal Museum, a volunteer, made a comment to me a long time ago that said the biggest problem with stamps is that they're this big when they're on display. So the ones we have are big and beautiful and blown up, because that's what we all see when we look at a stamp. We see something big and exciting. At the end of the experience, you'll notice, and thanks to Cheryl Gans and many others who recommended and made this possible along with the APS, there are British and British Commonwealth stamps for people to take for free. It's one thing to get someone excited, a YouTube video, whatever it may be, but you need to finish the connection. They need to be able to have the wonderment moment. So life cycle is how I think about philately in a big way, and I think often a lot of the disappointment in our world is because we haven't actually thought through the critical steps necessary to get someone from point A, where they are, to the end. The next comment is basically that we need to make way more of our public events. The amount of time, effort, and money that goes into our local shows, club meetings, or an international like this, we do so much and then we talk to ourselves. The key to Boston, and I personally believe has been incredibly successful already with, I've done 3 television interviews, 3 radio interviews. We have the public coming on, meeting people who just said, I heard about this through X or Y, not the traditional audience we see at our normal shows elsewhere in the country, the non-international for the US. The reason for that is that we are making a big event in a big metro area with lots of public draw. There's lots of partners and reasons that's happening, but the key is, once the public's here, what are we doing with them? How are we engaging? Are we confusing them? Are we being welcoming? Are we being engaging? So again, there are always better things we can do. And my last point basically is peers. My 7-year-old son is the best person that I know to interest his and any other 7-year-olds, or 8-year-olds, or 9-year-olds, or 5 or 6-year-olds. At our local stamp show, we invite his whole school. I don't lead the tour, my kids lead the tour. For the online world, the best for them are going to be other peers that are also online engaging in digital philately. If you're an exhibitor, it's going to be to exhibitors. If you're 60 years old, don't aim for the teenagers. Go try to go get other new retirees. So we often misalign, in my view, but in many cases actually align very well, how we're trying to recruit new people into our world. Think about, and the medical colleagues is an example of, that's a peer group. The age is irrelevant there. It's about the profession or the engagement of the knowledge or specialty. So peer can mean many things, not just
30
age
seconds.
or background. Thank you. The most important thing I want to express to all of you is that if complaining does nothing, and not that you're all here because you're obviously all on the proactive side, but the key is that always try to find an outlet to support or push for something new. Too often people can give ideas and then don't execute. And my whole premise of my life has been, if I'm gonna have an idea, I'm gonna go do it. And I'm gonna go find other people to help me, I'm gonna go raise the money, and we're gonna make a difference together. When I was 15 years old, people would say, you're gonna be the last person, you're gonna own everything at the end, Alex. And I said, that's the worst thing you could ever say to me. I consider it a dramatic insult. And 18 years ago, I founded the YPLF because I didn't want to be the last stamp collector, and I'm not going to be. That is all what this is about, basically, is about finding new people and about engaging the world. I'm excited for your questions and looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. I think we all can agree that we all belong to the greatest hobbies of all. And the value in this hobby is not the collection, it's actually the collecting. I am extremely positive for the future. I see a great potential in the future as well. But I see that we have gone lost in how we currently are managing the challenges going forward. When this hobby was founded in the 1860s and the first 30 years, this was a hobby for a smaller group than quantities. It was more important to focus on qualities than quantities. It was a hobby for an intellectual elite, not a financial elite, an intellectual elite. But from 1890s and onward, it should suddenly be a grassroots movement, which quite well fitted the society generally and its development. And the post-World War II generation, they were the culmination of this grassroots movement, which lasts until they started to die to about 10-15 years ago. And unfortunately, the enterprise from the first collectors grown with societies, organizations, industry and trade, they have for the last 10 years tried to save this grassroots movement, which I think has been the wrong focus. And included in that is also that we have been too much age focused. I think this is a hobby for no matter of age. It is the value in the collecting itself, and we have no age borders. I am a living example of that myself. I was 15 years when I took the chairmanship of my local stamp club, not for youth. I had members in my club who could have been my grandfather in age. So I would like to say that I think we should stop to focus on quantities, we should focus on qualities. We should start to accept that this is not a hobby for everybody. This is a hobby for an intellectual elite, and in that regard, everybody is welcome. We have to accept some very critical foundations for this hobby. You need to be interested to build knowledge. You need to be interested to focus on the right elements to be successful. And we have to accept that this is a hobby for which you need to have a financial budget to develop. The difference is that we have the same intellectual approach to it. The only difference is, like always in society, the budget is individual. I think the leaderships have neglected to accept these foundations. Very many leaders, they have been much more self-focused on their own title and possibly recognitions through that title, instead of delivering as they do in the professional life. They need to deliver what is something comes with the leadership. If I take on a leadership for something, what are the expectations? And I try to do that by doing Stockholmia 2019 with an international management team, and we try to deliver an example of what philately should be then and for the next generations going forward. I tried, and we succeeded to take a focus. Where do we need to be 10 years ahead? And the two questions you have asked for today is about what needs to happen to get this to flourish. And my answer on that is that the industry needs now to take the lead, because the organizational philately has failed. Too many leaders, they have failed to actually realize they need to deliver. And I think the trade needs to take over now and to lead this forward, because too many of the organizations, they have failed. The International Organization for Philately, FIP, they are not at all taking this lead. They are not even focused in this lead. So the trade needs to do it together with the key philatelic entities, and we need to define them. The Royal Philatelic Society of London is by far the most important society in the world. And for the intellectual elite who wants to collect stamps, they can facilitate all these foundations I would like to define. But that requires that the leadership take that perspective. Is the Royal Philatelic Society of London an international society? Is Collectors Club New York an international society? Collectors Club Chicago, American Philatelic Society.
30 seconds.
You can define them in numbers, but I don't think it is important to define them in numbers. I think we should disregard quantities. We should focus on qualities. So I would suggest that we focus on the leadership and make sure going forward that we elect the right leaders who are willing to take a professional approach and deliver. And if they only talk, we should turn the back to them and go forward without them and elect new leaders. That's how you do in business life, that's how you do in professional life, and that is how we do when we elect our politicians to lead the society. Thank you.
How do we develop the future philatelic leadership?
The first responsibility in assuming a leadership position is to build up a backbench or farm team to not only continue, but to take over when it's time to step down. We've seen too many leaders stay in the position. We've seen too many leaders stay in the position either through personal vanity or because they've eaten their young and there's nobody behind them. So we recruit, we encourage, and we listen. Says, what turns you on? What makes you, why are you engaged? What do you want out of this? How can you build it going forward? Be open to new ideas. Be open to I don't want to use the word out of the box thinking, because sometimes the threat of change in and of itself
is so off-putting that many are afraid to enact. But how can we go forward and listen and be open? And that's how we bring in our leadership. Encourage, mentor, and be open to ideas, and also be willing to step down when it's time. Thank you.
Right. Can I encourage this heckling and clapping? And if you agree with the panel, can we please get some noise in the room?
I'll actually give a very practical comment here. How many of you had a stamp club in your newsletter? It said, we're looking for officers or directors for X position or XY. That is the worst thing you could ever possibly put into your newsletter. Never, ever do that. The best way to recruit people is the one-on-one ask, in person, no emails, no text messages. Come someone, put your arm around them and say, I want to tell you about what this position has meant to me and how you can be helpful also. Desperation, even if it is an actual feeling that's being felt inside, is not one to exhibit externally for club or society leadership ever. It is a thing that signals all the things that are bad, and actually it masks probably that 100% or 99% of the field that's actually quite positive. So recruiting new members is about asking, and the most important ask you make is in person, it's personal, and it's about, I'm gonna be there with you. I've been in this role for 4 years. I really want to make you successful, and here's why you're going to be successful. And it's not just because I'm going to be behind you, it's because we're all ... So just a very practical, whether it's the next month, 18 months, or 9 years, just start thinking about that at the very local level to start being the one-on-one ask for new leaders.
Yes, it is a good question, because first we need to define and have a common agreement about what leadership is about, and leadership is very often to be and feel very lonely. A man who wants to lead his orchestra, he needs to accept that he needs to turn his back on his crowd sometimes. And that means that you need, as a leader, to define your own agenda to where you want to achieve. And that should, of course, be based on the society on any level you are the leader for. And you need to accept that if you turn your back to your crowd, you need also to accept what the crowd say about you behind your back. As you already have understood from my statements here, I am one who stretches the borders. I am on the edge saying what I mean and mean what I say. And if I didn't accept all the gossip and all the people are saying behind my back about me, and the words they are used against me, and if I felt sleepless for that, I would never sleep, because we are now in a situation status where we need to do something, because if not, this hobby will die in 10 years.
Just a quick response, Oliver, to your question. In my time in Philately, I've had the privilege of being involved in many leadership positions, clubs, societies, vice president role, president role, and I've never had more fun and learned more than working in a situation as one of 3 co-directors of the collaboration crew. And that notion of co-direction, and whether it's at the top or whatever positions you're talking about, I found to be instrumental, because you have that strong connection of bouncing things against each other. The mentorship that's gone on amongst the 3 of us has been the best I've experienced in 60 years of philatelic engagement. So those considerations in terms of the structural setup of how we organize ourselves is important as well.
We have a fantastic rhythm in Philately. You know, many of our clubs have journals that are published frequently, meetings that happen frequently, we have stamp shows that are in the agenda. We have a pace, and with things like social media, we can be held to account on that. If we make promises of something we're going to do as a leadership team, we are now very open. There's accountability, there's fairness, and there's transparency if we're able to use the technologies and the rhythm that we have. Winston, can you come up here so we can see who's got their hand up? Next question, please. Okay,
so I'm curious, because to me it seems like when we talk about the hobby, we almost use it as an excuse of lack of interest, lack of engagement. But the truth is, we're seeing that across third spaces, a decline in civil society, low enrollment and engagement in our nonprofits and other societies too. So how do we simultaneously engage in those new spaces with maintaining a quality of volunteers, not having our leadership lead to burnout, and maintaining our own professional standards so we can have both a new audience and maintain our current audience too.
You asked the existential question. First, it was 8:30 in the morning on a rainy holiday Monday, yet this room is full. We're dedicated. How do we motivate others? How do we recruit others? I've listened to the answers all the way down. Every single piece is wonderful. I liken it to the blind man and the elephant. We're each feeling the elephant and coming up with a slightly different interpretation, but our viewpoints among the 5 people sitting at the front of this room, plus the leadership team, is that we have to reach out, we have to be open. Some of the solutions are a little bit out of our wheelhouse. I look at my grandkids, they're both into Legos and everything else. I walked on the floor yesterday morning and I saw the Lego display. And it isn't rocket science that you take something that many people are interested in and bring it in. The idea is to bring something that is relevant, and we have to identify relevant. That's where the accountability, the benchmarking. Jonas brings up a very good point. In the business world, if it doesn't work, you jettison it or you're out of business. Sometimes you have an asset, an opportunity, take advantage of it, keep an open mind, and that's all it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Look at the point you have there about how to avoid the volunteers getting burnout. Now, in my experience of looking at through the collaboration crew especially, there are so many people doing so many different jobs, volunteering across lots and lots of different things. So is there something required over the next few years for us to safeguard this hobby where we simplify some of the organisational structures? Should we focus more on the scope to let our volunteers really have clear views on what they're doing? There's accountability, there's support networks around them. Is anyone on the panel got a view on that?
Your question, Suzanne, I was trying to say that in my introductory statement that we need to accept that some societies, some organizations, they will die because they lack energy. In societies where somebody wants to step forward and take a lead, I am sure that they will refuel also the energy. What I am saying is that everywhere where you have a leadership willing to take the lead and say, I have an idea, I have an agenda, I know where to go, follow me. I am sure we will follow. When I came here on Thursday, checked in at the show floor to prepare for these days, I saw an organization with hundreds of volunteers, and they did a job needed for this show to happen. Of course, because somebody had told them to follow them what to do and where to do it. And when they saw something needed, they took an initiative because they knew where to go. They knew that the show will open on Saturday. We need to be ready for that. So what I'm saying is that we need to accept some organizations to die. Actually, I think we should accept quite many to die. Because we heard Mark saying when COVID came, it proved that it is not so important that we can meet physically every time. We can today meet wherever we live in the world. And that is a big difference how we today use new tools for our survival. But everywhere we come, we need to accept people saying, either follow me or I follow you. If you have only talked, get out of my way. And that is what I hear. Too many leaders, they are only interested in their own title and their own possible recognition, which will come in philately from that title. We have no time for that kind of leadership anymore.
We have to look at how to engage each level and how to move someone from an accumulator up to another level. We then need to gear all of these resources uniquely to each one because there isn't one magic item.
Yeah, it's that question, isn't it, about the on-ramping of people and then how do we encourage the development of the journey. One of the things we did with Display Your Way and Jean's initiative is that, you know, it's about giving people an access point to wherever they are on their journey. So you don't have to be a, you know, Manchester City football player. You can just have a kick around the field if that's the level that you want to be doing on a Sunday morning with your mates. But then if you do want to advance to the next level, where's the mentorship? Where's that development journey? And who is responsible in the enterprise for doing that?
So I fully agree with what you said. I think we need to, on an individual collector level, help people enhance their enjoyment of the hobby at whatever level they're at. And one way is to help them discover the rich history and culture behind stamps, right? They're not just little pieces of paper that you're sticking in your album. There's so many stories that we can learn from them and share. And I think that's one of the biggest untapped joys of the hobby is sharing. And sometimes people just don't know where to go or how to find, the club or whatever. So I think we have to make things, make clubs or societies easier for people to find, whether it's online or in person, a local club, and then give them avenues for sharing that, somebody who's got something they don't want to exhibit, they don't want to deal with all the rules of competitive exhibiting and be judged, but they want to share. What venues or outlets can we offer them? So online show and tells, in-person show and tells. We get lots of participation when we do that at our club. And then we're trying this with Freestyle Philately, which we're kicking it off at our national convention, but my hope is that local and regional clubs or shows may take this on as well. It's very easy to do, it's low tech. You don't need a lot of, you don't need judges, there's no money that's needed, for it. So, and I think if we increase in, show people and mentor collectors how they can enhance their enjoyment of the hobby, they will then in turn want to share that with others. And that's how we grow the hobby.
If you haven't heard of it, we run a virtual Stampex show globally each year, and we run a number of roundtables at that event. You can access it 24 hours a day. One of the things I love about the roundtables at Virtual Stampex is I learn about things that are happening elsewhere in the world. And I want to try and take that and other things that are going around the world through the collaboration crew to share things. There's no point in us protecting our individual projects in each country or each society, and that's really what the collaboration crew is about, is saying if you've got something that's working in your club or in your country, please share it. We have to do that for our hobby. Alex, I just wanted to ask you a question, because the point here is what kinds of responsibility need to be undertaken by the key philatelic entities to bring all this stuff forward? You've got experience with a lot of philatelic entities. Who do you think is responsible for some of these things?
Thanks for that one, Suzanne. I'll start, name names, right. I'll start by simply saying that it dawned on me that I've probably never given any public recognition in any form to Jonas, who was an inspiration to me for many reasons, but in particular for what happened in Stockholm, for doing something to gather a group of people from around the world to execute something without FIP, but with a major philatelic organization with the Royal and people from all over to do different things, to think about aborts differently, presentations differently. And when he jumped into the professional world after coming from decades of volunteer leadership roles and personal initiatives, it inspired me a year later to do the same thing, to jump into the professional world, realizing that that's really where we could make the most impact for what we cared the most about. So just dawned on me that I should make that public recognition. But to that end, the answer is part of your question. The answer is the organizations that should be named here are the ones that actually care about looking outward, not inward. And I'll name names. If you're an organization that seems to only be celebrating the exhibiting prowess of your members, you're failing. It's because in the end, less than 3%, maybe 2% of all philatelists or members of the APS exhibit at all. So I care about maybe, let's focus on 50% versus 2% or 3%. So freestyle, flat, all of these things, that's a totally different category. I'm talking about the sort of this niche area, but if you look at this show, 50% of the room are exhibit frames, competitive exhibit frames. Are 50% of the people coming to this show focused on exhibiting? Does the public understand or even able to engage? No. And I'm saying a truth that could stab me in the back, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the bottom line is organizations need to focus on the things that really matter and ask themselves, what can we actually do to bring new people in? So to Cole's question, many people here, It's finding opportunities to engage people, intellectual comments. Every comment here I agree with in some form that puts us all together. I think the APS probably is leading the way in thinking about a broad base of engagement, that everyone's entry point is valid, and that in the end, if we can get them in by providing digital assets, physical assets, shows that we can then elevate people from there. We can bring people into the exhibiting world. We can take exhibitors and help them mentor them to be judges. All the other niche areas become possible. I would just go so far to say that I think we are all a little worried about kind of what can't be done. I think most organizations say to themselves, what do we have the budget for? The UK show in 2030 is going to be back in Birmingham where it was in 2025. I personally think that's an enormous mistake. Why? Because it's not a place that people even in the UK want to visit. It's very difficult to access. but if I was wrong, then they would have come in 2025, but they didn't. The public didn't show up. Now, is that because of its location, or is that because the show organizers didn't do anything to attract the public? Maybe a little of each, but either way, it's an example of how organizations don't fully think through how to make the most of that resource they're putting in, all that money, all that time into an event that doesn't have an attraction point to bring new people into your organization and enlarge the pie. So I would say the APS, the Royal Philatelic Society of London, and any other club or society that wants to actually break barriers and do something bigger and really find opportunities for collaboration. That's those are the organizations I would say.
Well, yeah, we've got to be ambitious, we've got to be bold, we've got to try new things. We can't just keep on trying to do the same things we've done for the last 50, 180 years. Vincent, can you tell me who's who's making the biggest effort to ask their question? Who's doing that? This chap here, he really wants to ask a question.
Thank you. One of the issues that we've looked at since COVID hit is virtual exhibitions. Now, I think they're important, but I'd be interested to know what the panel's thinking on the way forward, because one, they take something away from, I'll say, FIP, because that's been mentioned a few times. But I mean, Australia just ran a large virtual exhibition, multi-frame. It wasn't single frame like the one that was originally started in South Africa. And it was very, very popular, and it was open to people right around the world. And the important thing about that was all these people got feedback from qualified judges. So whilst Alex is talking about exhibiting isn't necessarily the most important thing, one of the things I do in Australia is actually get people we try and get people to put one frame up and just get them thinking about organisation. I don't push them to become exhibitors, I push them to become organised, and it's an important part of any hobby. If you just want to accumulate and have stuff in boxes and things, they don't get the most out of the hobby doing that. So I'd just be curious to what the panel thinks about moving forward with virtual exhibitions.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Markand to take this first, because Markand, you started doing virtual displays and talks during COVID. Am I right in saying that the prizes were physical medals out of the virtual show? Yeah, physical medal, which is important, right? That's doing both.
See, the virtual world came into the picture of Philately, I think, just after COVID. And I had started organizing seminars over Zoom. 18 presentations we did, okay, altogether. And the highest number of attendance was in one of the talk of Jonas Hällström. 178 people attended that Zoom presentation on thematic philately. So when it comes to the virtual world, it is an easier way to connect people. The important thing is the time zone. So when I was organizing these seminars, I used to highlight the Central European time, the Eastern time, Indian time, everything, and you have to be very careful with the timings, that what time you expect most of the people. Obviously Saturday, Sunday, and different time zones. Now, what we are doing in India, we have started organizing this from last year, 2025. We had organized one dedicated aero and astrophilately exhibition. We repeated it again in 2026, and I think we are going to continue it every year. Now we are planning for 2027. And when it comes to the virtual world, there are certain limitations, and people need to understand something. Like in the first instance, what we did, unknowingly, we committed a mistake that we got the PDFs of all the exhibits, we uploaded it, and it was readily available for download. We realized it very quickly, and then we put the restrictions on it, that it cannot be downloaded. One person can go on website and can download all the exhibits. So there are new things. We are doing experiments, and we are also learning. We try to deliver the best. But when it comes to virtual world, I think there are endless possibilities, not only seminars and the virtual exhibitions. There are so many different things can be connected with the virtual world and AI. I was discussing this with Chris King last week only over a video call when I was in India and he was in Rhode Island, about judging with AI and checking the possibilities. And he said we should have a test run, Markand. And you know what I did when I came to Boston? Before the display was mounted, I uploaded my entire PDF of my 8 frames exhibit, and I set my target that I am exhibiting in Boston. I gave all the previous background of my exhibit, that it won gold medal in the FAPA exhibition, Birmingham, Eurofilets, blah, blah, blah. And with these changes now, what should I expect? And it will give you the full mark sheet, etc., and all the critics, all the important things. You can polish your exhibit. So there are virtual and AI, there are endless possibilities, and the technology itself is in evolving stage and is improving day by day.
I think what the PTS does in many ways with Virtual StampX is an excellent element and an opportunity. But I think the most important thing to remember is that what the virtual world does is it is an inexpensive way to connect philatelists. Inexpensive. They don't have to travel to a show, they don't have to spend money or take necessarily time off work. It's very helpful for young people to engage. It's why YouTube audiences, that's a type of virtual digital philately, is engaging, because spending money, my friend Dan here has to take off work, who's come to a show, comes from Atlanta. It's just not something that most young people, young professionals can do with young families and so forth. But in the end, we are a physical hobby. It's not going to work if all of Philately becomes virtual. And I'm not a Luddite, I'm simply stating the truth, which is that how do we engage new people? You can excite their interest, you can maybe intrigue them if we can get them to engage or come and visit, attend a virtual exhibition, but what's the life cycle event? What's the next thing? How are we going to get them to do the next step, come down in the funnel? And I think just another virtual exhibition, they'll float away. It's like having a pond at the edge of the Pacific Ocean. The internet is vast and they can see anything all the time. But coming to the show, it's a totally different immersive experience. Coming to any show or club, etc. So I'm both.
I agree with a lot that has been said, and I certainly appreciate very much that there is a panel, there is a working group, because I think it's very important that we share. It's very important to share in philately in general, but also on these questions. And I think I'm Lars, I'm from Europe, and we have American Federation of Federations, we have FEPA, and we have experienced that the federation members of FEPA, they don't necessarily talk to each other. So there's a lot of sharing necessary there. There's a lot of good ideas around, and they should be shared so they can be used by everybody. I think firmly that we need width and we need elite. It's like in football or soccer. You have the Manchester City team and everybody likes to watch them play, and the local team around the corner, well, you watch it because your son is playing there. But there's room for both. But the big advantage they have in football is that they know what success is. It's winning by at least one goal. But we can't define success in stamp collecting or growing stamp collecting, or we have all individual goals and success criteria. And how to to bring that into unity is not simple. But we certainly need to talk to each other, and this is a very good initiative in that direction.
If people are interested, I think we are going to run a Zoom session as the collaboration crew off the back of this. So make sure you're signed up to the Facebook group. You can also go on the website. But we'll continue the conversation after this is all. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Paul to close us off. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Let me, of course, start by thanking all the panelists and really thanking all of you. 8:30 in the rain, and you were here. Thank you very much. I just want to wrap up, just as I was listening to the panelists and to all of you, there's a few themes that came out that I think we should probably put in our minds, and as we spend the rest of the day at the show and the rest of the week and the rest of the year, what we should be thinking about. Clearly, as relevancy came up, everyone's mentioning relevancy. And that's an important thing that we need to figure out for the future of our beloved hobby. And we heard about interacting with the public and bringing in the public and deciding, listening to public and also listening to our public, because we're a subset of the bigger public. We need to understand, we need to scope who we are, how are we going to think about as a hobby, who are we going to try to attract. And so we have to think about relevancy. As we heard, relevant organizations are growing in philately. Irrelevant organizations are dying. If you want to know the distinction between those organizations in philately are growing and those are not, that's probably the #1 litmus test. Are they relevant? So relevancy is key. Make sure you're relevant. Make sure that you're not in the not relevant. So relevancy was one big theme that came up. Another one was leadership. Clearly, we heard leadership over and over again from the panelists and from you. Professionalism. We have to get more professional. It's been said different ways, and you can have different takes on it, but clearly professionalism in terms of the leaders, you have accountability to deliver, personal accountability, structural accountability within from an institutional standpoint. We need to focus on what matters, and to do that we need metrics. Exactly as the last speaker just said, we have to have metrics to define success. That will help drive us together. Third theme that came out, I love the term cross-pollination. We heard it often as bring in other fields. I love the cross-pollination. That's a great way of thinking. All of us need to expand. And the collaboration crew is all about that. That's how we started. That's how we got forums around cross-pollination. And so bringing in others, that's clearly a theme that is necessary for our success. We heard that. And then the last item I heard was journey. The marketing term would be journey management. How we bring people through the funnels into it. And Jean, you used the word, and I'm going to use this one as, we need the journey for joy. We have to have the joy for philately, right? We need to manage the journey of joy through philately. And that means making sure every society, every organization has somebody who's in charge of that and brings people through the joy of philately and making it a funnel and getting them to their right destination, not our right destination, their right destination. And that's what I think we heard today in terms of some of the big themes around relevancy, leadership, cross-pollination, journey of joy. And then I'll just leave this in terms of the wrap-up for this is, and I'll echo one of the statements, which is, to all of us, as we walk out of this room and we talk to other people, lead or get out of the way, because we are creating a joyful, thriving hobby. Thank you. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You did a great job. Thanks for helping us out.